everybody.
Hello, my name is John,
And I'm Maria.
and this is our first podcast. We're going to do a number of regular podcasts around the theme of empowered relationships or conscious relationships. Our aim is to support people in their relationships. Obviously, we've done a lot of work ourselves in the area.
In our own marriage, and also working with clients and teaching groups on how to improve relationships.
So, our first podcast today, we're going to explore the whole area of commitment and what it means to be in a committed relationships. So, over to you, Maria. What does commitment mean then for you in terms of relationships, and why is it important?
It's interesting when we talk about commitment because for a lot of people, commitment could sound a bit like a jail sentence. Sometimes we have a negative relationship with commitment, and we feel that we're giving our power away, we're giving our freedom away, and I know myself, I had to work on that. This was kind of something that I was very afraid to commit to. You know, what is it that I'm committing to, especially when we were talking about getting married. To me, it felt like, wow, I'm gonna get married. Does this mean it's gonna be for the rest of my life? I don't know how I'm gonna feel or think in 2 years' time, 10 years' time. So I think one of the interesting things of commitment for me and working with people is that commitment is just to say that you're going to do something and you're going to follow through. The important thing about commitment is that you are in a healthy relationship. Because if you are in a toxic relationship, commitment, that sense of commitment, could just keep you in a loop where you're unable to escape. So when we talk about commitment in a healthy, normal relationship, it means that when there is an argument, we don't just run off. We actually stay and we work through the commitment, and we actually, through that conflict, we develop a deeper bond with ourselves and with the other person.
Yeah, I think you've really hit the nail on the head there. You know, so again, building on that, what are we committing to? You know, and really, if we're having a conscious relationship with another person, commitment then is about supporting that. It's not about creating a prison where we feel like we can't escape or we're trapped in something, but rather it's a support, isn't it? So that the idea being that when difficulties do arise and we fall out or we have arguments or we disagree over something or we find it hard to be around each other, that boundary supports us in actually staying there with the other person and working through the issue, and then, as Maria, as you said, coming out the other side into a better place, isn't it?
Yeah.
So commitment seems to be a positive thing to have.
Most definitely, because when we are committing in the relationship, not just physically or sexually, not just emotionally, but when we are committing as a whole, we are creating a safe space for development, for growth. And it's only in that safe space that conscious love can grow.
Wow, I really love that. Yeah, conscious love. Yeah, it's beautiful, isn't it? And I think you're right. I mean, it's I suppose a big question for or a big wake up for a lot of people is, you know, they get into what they consider a committed relationship, whether you're married or not married, a monogamous perhaps relationship. But they don't necessarily realize what they've signed up to. You know, you mentioned a few words there around emotional connection and cognitive connection or sexual physical connection. And I guess not everybody appreciates that, do they? You know, that, you know, I'm actually, what have I committed to?
Yeah.
I think that's a good question, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think like really what we are committing to is to be present, so that love can grow, that our connection can go deeper. And I mean, commitment brings that sense of safety and a healthy boundary around the growth of the relationship.
But that requires a bit of honesty, though, as well, doesn't it?
Yeah, of course.
That we're willing to be honest with each other.
Yeah, but I mean, to be honest with each other, first we need to be honest with ourselves.
Right.
And I think, like, whatever shape or form, we need to work on ourselves.
Right.
Whatever that means, whatever that entails, we have to work on ourselves, on looking at our own fears and our own traumas and our own unconscious patterns and energy that are always coming up. And that's the beauty of a relationship. You cannot hide from your wounds, because your wounds will always emerge with the person that you love the most.
So you need to work on yourself.
Yeah.
And then together you need to work on the relationship.
Yeah.
And both things support each other if you're doing it right.
Exactly.
Wow, yeah, that's great. And I, just going back to that idea of what people are committing to, I suppose, like for a lot of people, well, initially when there's an attraction, they might have a strong physical or sexual relationship and think, well, that's what the relationship is, isn't it? I've committed to just being with this person physically. And that, for a lot of people, that seems to be the starting point, isn't it, of the relationship? But then, I think, when we're talking about conscious relationships, we're actually saying, well, hold on a minute, you're not just committing to being with the person physically, you're also committing to sharing with the other person cognitively, so, to communicate what you're thinking, your values, your philosophy, and what's going on for you, isn't it? And obviously, as you said earlier, on an emotional level, you're saying, well, look, we're sharing an emotion, we're committing to some sort of emotional intimacy as well.
Yeah, like, I mean, I've worked with hundreds, if not thousands of couples, and I have to say, what I see again and again is there is that sense that when we haven't worked on ourselves, when we haven't uncovered what's buried inside ourselves, we can't be fully present with the other person. Therefore, we cannot be fully present in the relationship. And it might be that emotionally we check out, and that could take many shapes or forms, or we might have some kind of addiction to whatever, it's a way of emotionally disconnecting from the space of the relationship. So any time that we feel we need to disconnect from the relationship, that relationship can't evolve in that area.
Right. So that's where the real challenge is, isn't it? And I guess some people disconnect in different ways. For some people, they may disconnect, as you say, emotionally. Other people may withdraw mentally.
Yeah.
Where they're going off into different. You might say to me, well, what are you thinking? And I go, well, that's none of your business, isn't it? And so I pull back from sharing my thoughts, which is part of the commitment, isn't it?
And sexually as well. How we check out sexually, especially in a monogamous relationship.
Well, monogamy is an interesting word, isn't it? Because I suppose on one hand, you're committing to only being with that person sexually, but the other side of monogamy is you're agreeing to be sexual together.
Yeah.
And if one person withdraws that from the relationship, that can cause a lot of stress.
And I guess that's one of the big problems that we have today in relationships, especially, I mean, it can happen at any stage, but there is a sexual cycle in the relationship, and especially, when children come about, and I don't think as a society we have an understanding of the sexual rhythms of men and women, which are different, and we need to gain more understanding on our own sexual energy and how that creates a connection in the relationship.
Well, absolutely. And I think if the commitment is there and there's good connection on the other levels, you see, that's why it's so important, isn't it? If there's good communication and good emotional, heartfelt connection, if there's a challenge on the physical or sexual level, it can be accommodated because people can talk about it and they can reaffirm their love for each other, and they can say, well, right now I just not available physically. And for most relationships where the other areas are all strong, then that's like a cushion for that, isn't it?
Definitely.
But if the other areas aren't strong, and there's, whether it's an emotional withdrawal or a mental withdrawal or a physical sexual withdrawal by one person in the relationship, then the relationship breaks down, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Because the other areas aren't there to support.
Yeah, because there is a lack of understanding. Sometimes we think like, if, for example, if we are not having sex, that means we don't love each other anymore, or we're not attracted to each other anymore, and that's not necessarily true.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, it's attraction goes way beyond just the physical.
Yeah.
Because you can be attracted to each other on a thinking level. I love discussing my thoughts, my hopes, my values, my ideas with you. We can be attracted to each other on a heart level.
Yeah.
We really feel the love for each other, and we share our emotions together, isn't it? And obviously the whole spiritual level too. There's a commitment there as well. And I think when we talk about maybe the spiritual level, in what we're referring to is, as you kind of said earlier, it's more the idea that, there's a sacred bond there, or in the commitment, isn't there? That we're willing to stay and work through stuff.
Yeah.
For me, that's a big part of the spiritual side of it, isn't it?
Yeah,
Or the conscious side, is that it?
Definitely.
Yeah.
So I guess just to wrap it up, one of the things that it was very useful for me, I was a bit of commitment phobic, as I was saying, when we had our Celtic wedding, when we had our
hand fasting.
One of the things that I really liked is that we were married for a year and a day. And we've kept that very much so, in that every year we check in and we kind of rewrite a new contract. So I know I can commit to a year. I know I can say, okay, this year I'm gonna give it my best. I'm gonna really try to make this relationship work. And when the year is up, we have a conversation to see where we are at. And for me, that keeps me in a very safe place, in a very free place.
How many days do we have left this year?
Not that many.
Yeah. So recommitting. What I hear you say is, I mean, our theme for today is commitment.
Same.
But every year we recommit.
Yeah.
And even just to add in as well, I suppose what's important is we have 3 small kids, so that's a real commitment in itself, isn't it? And part of the container we create in our relationship is it's really important that holds them too, doesn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
They're learning their values about what we're talking about, how we relate from us, aren't they?
Yeah.
And maybe that can be one of our themes for our next podcast. But also what we do is even more frequently on a weekly basis, we have a date night, because that's all we could get out once a week. We have a date night, which is really kind of what you're saying, once a year, but once a week.
Yeah.
We go out and we have dinner and we have a date, and we would talk about elements of our relationship then, wouldn't we?
Definitely.
As well? So that's another way of, I suppose, recommitting every week, reflecting on how we're getting on, bringing up stuff maybe that we need to talk about, isn't it?
Yeah.
And just reaffirming the love we have together.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Great. It's been lovely having this dialogue with all of you. If there's any themes that you would like us to talk about, just write a comment or send us a message, and we'll do our best to accommodate your questions.
Yeah, absolutely. We'd love to include everybody in our conversation. We've been inspired, obviously, through our own marriage and relationship and our work to do this podcast. So it's experiential, it's new, we're kind of taking a risk and we're putting it out there. So we'd love for anyone to get involved in the discussion, and we look forward to hearing from you.
Yeah. Bye bye. Thanks.
Bye. Thank you.